The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What's happening? Benton here. About to roll out from a pilot truck stop in my little car, not a big rig. Rolling out in a little car, and we're going to make Cali today, assuming, barring the unforeseen, as they say. Always got to account for that unforeseen. Hold on. Okay. I realize now this elevation has been kicking my butt. And in fact, if I had it to do over again, I think I would have just gone the I-10 route and avoided the extra fatigue of the high elevation. So we stopped about 1 p.m. yesterday in Kingman, Arizona. Paid $71 for a Motel 6. Saw a couple of bugs, but here's the thing: is I dragged all my stuff from my car. I mean, maybe I brought them. I really don't know. I hope not, but that was kind of funny. But yeah, I wanted to try to make it all the way to Barstow yesterday and potentially take 2 days in the motel. You know, find me a bargain, and then that's I'm assuming not high elevation in Barstow, but we didn't quite make it. It was another like 200 and something miles, so called it a day. And wait a minute. Okay, the Motel 6 was the first place I stopped. I could have booked it cheaper online. This is a strange part of a dystopia delusion, you know, realm of death and destruction, Moloch's machine, business, capitalism is just right there in front of the lady. I'm like, hey, you know, I can book this cheaper online. And she's just like, yeah, go ahead. But I did not want to, you know, I lack the desire to pay with my card. I don't want to risk any, you know, I'm not going to do anything, but I don't want to run the risk of charges to my card. In fact, let me double check, make sure I have my ID before we roll out of town. Is that it? Can't quite tell. There's no lights in here. Let me grab my trusty flashlight. Yeah, we got it. We're all good. Always good to check. Always good to check. We got the fuel stop in 64 miles, or actually a little more than that. The last fuel stop before the escalated California prices, which are always higher, of course. I kind of screwed up the fuel stops the other day, but that's okay. We have more fuel right now than probably we need to have. It doesn't matter. We're going to be paying that high Cali prices soon enough. What's it matter? Yeah, I don't know what the signal's going to be like. It was very poor getting to Kingman, but maybe it won't be so bad. We're about to find out together. Yay! Mm. And I only managed to sleep from maybe, I don't know, 3 something until about 9:30. So I guess 6 hours of sleep, and managed to. I should have just laid on the floor the whole time. That bed did not do me any favors, but then I laid on the bed, laid on the floor for a couple more hours. That was good for the back and the old man tissues. So we got that going for us. Probably I should check my tire pressure at some point. I checked it before I rolled out. Yeah, man, good times. I can definitely tell I could use with another rest day. So I was already scouting out uh, motel prices. Looks like Bakersfield is halfway affordable, but then I'm going to get there fairly early in the day, and then will they actually let me check in early, or maybe want to charge extra, which I don't quite understand. But I guess they're going to charge whatever they can charge. Yes, $71 definitely a little more than I wanted to pay, but I had to. That was only because they actually had a CDL discount, and then they wanted $100 deposit, which I don't mind as long as there's somebody there if I want to roll out at 2 in the morning to come check the room. But then she was like, "Oh, if you have an out-of-state ID, we can waive the deposit." I guess it's the locals coming in there tearing shit up. Quite a few local meth heads roaming around, waiting for the intense heat of the summer, I suppose. Yeah, I can definitely tell I'm not quite back to normal. That's one thing about this journey across I-40. It's a lot of it's high elevation, but it's not really, it's not really time to adapt to it. Such as when I was in Denver for 10 days to 2 weeks or whatever that was. After the first like 3 days, and I was still ill. I was still fairly ill compared to now at the time, as far as physically. But that was like 3 days, and then I was acclimated. Dehydration more of a factor at elevation. Headaches potentially. I think the cordyceps mushrooms is supposed to help. I noticed that I have this high quality um, cordyceps mushroom powder. The good shit though, not the cheap shit. I noticed I was started taking more of that. I think that's supposed to help for high elevation. I seem to recall that somewhere, or maybe it's grown at high elevation. I don't know. All right, we're going into it. Looks like this could be troublesome self coverage territory. We'll see. I believe we're now descending. Yeah, and I know Flagstaff's at elevation. I just failed to make the connection between my physicality and fatigue, because normally I would have no problem. I could have done this. I've done trips like this many times with no hotel breaks. And then here I was like 2 in a row to get rested. And then I finally figured it out. Figured it out last night. So, the elevation is kicking my ass. That's what it is. I was having some sort of thoughts. I was having some disturbing thoughts when I first woke up, like violent movie images. And we got past that pretty quick with our meditation and reframing techniques. Proper identification, of course, one of the major themes of the channel here of late. This road is fucked, if anybody's curious. Why would Arizona spend money to maintain the last, however many miles of I-40 headed into California, right? It's like, hey, you're leaving our state. We don't care. How's that okay? And then if California does the same thing headed into Arizona, couldn't both states get together and say, hey, how about y'all maintain your side and we'll do our side? Everybody will be happy. But yeah, there I go with the what might LARP for common sense. Forgive me for that. Got our coffee here. Is this road leaning or is my car leaning? I don't know what's going on here. I'm guessing the road. I did not notice this in town. Like leaning to the left, probably rutted from the big rigs. Rutted road from the big rigs. Rut road. There's another pilot truck stop sign. a lady with her dark sunglasses, uh, the gas pumps behind her, and a little logo for Wendy's. Yeah, she's fulfilled. She's happy because she's her life's purpose is to be engaged in commerce, business, and to serve Moloch's machine. So how she could not be possibly be more happy and fulfilled. Meanwhile, look at me in the thumbnail if there is a thumbnail. I've noticed lately StreamYard's been screwing up the thumbnails for whatever reason. Historic Route 66, half a mile, exit 44. All right. And I considered staying there, and if not for the elevation, I don't know how high Kingman is. It's got to be at least 4,000 feet. It seems pointless to do an extra day of rest at elevation, to just leave the elevation. But I thought about it, even at those elevated prices, which, again, what are folks going to say? Forget about the tariffs, but it's going to be, although a lot of that bullshit they put in the room, the towels and all that's got to be imported. Just the inflation, cost of everything being up. And I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of thinking about it. I'm sure you people are sick of hearing about it. It's like, hey, I've got the money, so here, take the money, and I'm going to go lay down now. Right? I mean, it's really gotten to that point. And at some point, I won't have the money, and I'll just, I don't know. I guess I'll be hanging out front with the meth heads, and not really, but I'm joking. Hmm. So back to this morning, just the normal worries and stresses of life, and uncertainty. Being discomfiting. Is that the right word? I'd have to look that up. But not that comfortable necessarily. Humans seeking comfort and certainty, right? Um, but that perfect technology, right? That perfect technology of proper identification. All it took was, well, that's right. What I am lacks the capability to be concerned about any of this whatsoever. So, what does it matter? I will go wherever I'm going to go, and I will do whatever I'm going to do. And yesterday's second stream, I got into notions around. You may see people post on Twitter or, God forbid, TikTok, which I'm not on, um, or YouTube comments. You might see some version of carry water, chop wood, which is sort of a Zen Buddhist sort of thing, an idea of, and then that ties into another Zen or just Confucius say type idea around uh, when one is tired, rest. When one is uh, sleepy, sleep. When one is hungry, eat. It's basically like just go with the flow, listen to your body, do whatever's appropriate, and again, no such thing as common sense. And of course, it's worded much more eloquently, but that's the gist of the messages. And well, my first thought, even years ago, reading that, because I don't necessarily experience the warm sentiment of, oh well, imagining what our lives might, and again, the royal hour, but imagining what an individual's life might be like. And I have chopped wood and enjoyed it, and carried water and all of this. And yeah, it's its own thing, but improperly identified, a person is free to physically carry the water and chop the wood, but then to be thinking about their bills, thinking about their stresses, inherent or incumbent, inherent within Moloch's machine, born into this delusion. And it's that perfect technology, what a blessing to have finally. And if it was something I had to earn, great. If not, about fucking time, right? About fucking time. But that implies it's something outside of me granting it to myself. Actually, it's me tapping more into what I am. And y'all thought that Jack Talcott was narcissistic. Listen, get a load of me, right? That's me. Wow, we lost. Do I sound like I'm lecturing? I don't know. Could be an ad. I realize now they put ads on some of these streams. But either way, this is about me on some level. But yeah, maybe I got too narcissistic there, perhaps. And the more I think about it, there's really realistically, I don't see a path to teaching other people this proper identification. I believe the helpful part could be for people to hear about it and think about it over time. Like I read about a lot of these spiritual topics many years ago and read many books and walked around and contemplated for years, and off and on, and getting sort of sucked back into Moloch's machine more strongly at times. And even being homeless in the streets, living that life with almost no money and few possessions, but still, looking back on it, very closely identified with Moloch's machine. How am I going to get, whatever I need today? Is that panhandling? Am I going to the Home Depot to stand in line, stand with the Mexicans for day labor? Portland, Oregon, the MLK Worker Center has a lottery system. All of these various, just the, circumstances of life. And having realized years ago from watching Ex-Wife number 2, number 1, life is not something being done to me or to her. And I told her that one time. I said, listen, you're acting like this life is being done to you. But what I would say is, yeah, it would, of course, feel that way if one is so strongly identified with this experience itself, with the earth, with the nation, with the state of, with making a living, with money, right? So not that she was bad or wrong for that, but and I had been doing my own fake it till you make it reframing in my head for years, and probably that's what was annoying me. It was like, hey, you could choose to reframe that. Like, you don't have to go to the mall and buy clothes today for work. You get to go to the mall or whatever that is. Like, oh, that whole attitude. And Southern thing, growing up in negative cultures also, at our ages, where people express themselves negatively, like, what are you doing today? Oh, well, I have to go to the grocery store. It's like, well, actually, you get to go to the grocery store, and then later on transitioning to homelessness and actually seeing, well, yeah, it is a blessing that the money I have in my fanny pack right now, the fact that in the short term, anytime I want, if I'm driving and get tired, I can check into a hotel. Like, that's not, again, I'm not even promised tomorrow, you know. And then if we look at the unreality and the surrealism and the biblical notions around, more or less live for the day, you know, let tomorrow worry about tomorrow and the subsequent days, which don't even exist, strictly speaking. And the now doesn't even exist, strictly speaking. In a way, though, in a context, I was always bothered by that. It's not real. This place isn't real. Oh, there's a big rig fucked up. It's like kind of crashed or broke down. There's waking up in a what seems to be a physical body, breathing oxygen, drinking water, needing to eat food at some point. Cold, heat, bodily functions. Like, just that layer alone makes it seem very real. And I would say that it's good enough. That's good enough for me to call it real, while also viewing it through the lens of delusion. So that's where the unreality and the surrealism and the deja vu comes in. It's via the unreality, via delusion, because it can't ever be strictly real or concrete. And is that even possible anyway? I don't know. That's above my pay grade. So how and why? I ask these questions. So why, if science, and apparently the yogis of the East have been saying this for years, that this place is actually not solid, it's vibrating energy. And some version of like David Icke's idea of it's probably not his idea, but he popularized it in some ways. Like a film, more or less like a film projector. I know Leslie has talked about this origin beingness. I forget her actual official name on here. What's up, Mental Pancakes? Good to see you. So the, chop of wood, carry water stuff, any of that stuff I hear nowadays, I want to know, well, how? Like, how do I do that? So some of what I talk about on here, at least if there's people who might already be doing their own versions of a practice or practices, or who might begin, baby steps, as I did in some ways many years ago. It's to also have sort of ahead of time some of these intellectual ideas. And to me, it's always important to ask, well, how? Because as we know with the word of mouthing and the common sensing and the conventional wisdoming of everything, almost all the time, just, oh, well, just do this. It's easy. Do that. It's easy. Right. Well, what I'm talking about is intentionally undertaking. Some of what I'm talking about is like the most difficult undertakings possible in a way. And when I'm word of mouth, I want to know how, right? I want to know why. It's not really. And so when I read a lot of this Eastern stuff, I knew I didn't have the answer, but I would read that, and it eventually I began to become irritated and annoyed and that's because of improper identification. I didn't know that back then, but it's like, okay, great. It just feels wonderful. I can see how people get, sort of basking in the sentimental glow of imagining themselves in these states of bliss or whatever. But like, how about a how? Like, how the fuck do we do this? Yeah, I understand meditation. Okay, doing that, doing that every day. I get that, but you know, and then versions of being patient and trusting and understanding that if something's worth doing, it's worth doing of its own merits. The reward is contained within the thing itself. So, and I may never actually get there. I could have continued all of these practices and never had that moment, 5 weeks ago or whatever it was of, true knowledge of self. And I'm not exaggerating. I know exactly not who I am. I figured out who I am but where. Okay. So I figured out who I am where in relation to Moloch's machine, in relation to the external delusion. And then I figured out what are my own characteristics and proclivities and preferences, and how do I generally respond and react to certain situations. So I figured all of that out long ago with it, and then identity and all of this, but only in what relation to Moloch's machine. And I'm here to say, what I'm seeing now, let me calm down. What I'm seeing now, when I hear my pitch start to rise, I know it's time to chill the fuck out. I'm doing less leaning into the bass tones these days, if y'all haven't noticed. Shit, did I lose my point? Ah, fuck. Hope not. Oh well. Perhaps it shall return. It happens. I'm blaming the fatigue from the high elevation, which I handle well overall. Really, the fatigue is, and then not just fatigue in a vacuum, fatigue coupled with all of this driving. Although I only drove like 450 miles the first day. I got too good of a deal on a motel room, and then ended up being a waste. I think I would have been better off just driving, taking naps. But either way, it doesn't matter. It was a lovely, lovely time. Word of mouthing. Hang on, I got to figure this out. Conventional wisdom. Oh, yes. The identification with the realm, right? And so, who am I? But where? See, the who am I, from my perspective, that's always in relation to the delusion, Moloch's machine, business, industry, earning a living. And then it seems like every single one of us, we all have our own versions of, the stress and pressure, especially when younger, of making our way in the world, and that uncertainty and fear that's natural. And then, looking back on my own experiences, not being able to put a finger on it, but being aware on some level that, hey man, this is not going to lead to fulfillment. This is not going to lead to purpose or any of that. This is not for you. This is you in service of this thing and this system. And then the system at the time was willing to grant me enough where I could say, okay, this does work for me, right? Where I was able to uphold a certain image. And it was my recent example of a graven image to uphold before Moloch and say, how have I done? You know, uh, questionable morality and just a lot of different things about my life back then. That was specifically when I was with my first ex-wife, now, ex-wife number one, while we were married. So, for example, I got interested in like the whole Fast and Furious thing, not because of the movie, but right before the coming into that time of the Fast and the Furious movie, I got into buying an affordable car and then buying affordable parts to modify it. So even then, it was within a. It's like, okay, the realm is giving me enough money, or not giving me, but it's I'm going to have access to enough funds that if I'm able to be frugal and really intelligent about what I'm doing, then I can afford to like go drag racing and buy race gas at times and buy used parts and soup up my car, right? That sort of thing, which is increasingly just less and less possible. Hang on, we got a semi coming onto the road, and they'll never believe me if I'm going to go slow. So there's really no sense in passing him just for him to pass us back. So we're waiting for him to figure out to just get up to speed. I think he's figuring it out. And he may not know that he's not in California either. It's like, hey, wait a minute, is it 55 here? Is that a cop? Am I getting a ticket? No, that sign says 75, sir. So where I'm at in my phase of, I don't know that you could call it growth. It's probably more correctly a return to source, but within delusion. Return to source within delusion. Somebody write that down. Email that to me. I must capture that. Return to source within delusion. Returning to source within delusion. All right, hang on. I gotta do something about that. If I can. Gotta make a note. That's good. That's good. Returning to source within delusion. What? It's a slow driving contest out here. This is crazy, man. I don't understand it. Oh wait, I'm also text to speeching that. Never mind. All right. Well, it'll just have extra text in it. It's a slow driving contest out here. I'm going 50 motherfucking 5 and a 75 because I don't know what this semi's doing, but he can't figure it the fuck out. I refuse to believe that he's going this slow just in a vacuum. I don't believe it. Something about me slowing down and him getting in front of me and then me never passing him is freaking him out. Even if he's not consciously aware of it, there's now that a car finally passed him. See, he's been anointed. He doesn't. He's he's not a lowly wretched sinner. He's been anointed now. He's driven onto the interstate and somebody's finally validated him by passing him. Right. So it was bothering him that I was refusing to anoint him because I'm like, hey, undiagnosed fake autism. Can I just chill the fuck out? And we both know you're going to go faster. Well, he doesn't know, but I know he's going to go faster than me. So what's the point? And there's versions of this spiritually going on. Anybody that is what I am, I should say, meaning one with the most super intelligent force of love and creation at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, a quickening spirit. I wonder if I could trademark all of that. And not that I have any desire to turn whatever I am into a business. Well, and I shouldn't say whatever I am. Not that I'm trying to turn these discourses into a business, but that might make for a halfway decent book title, right? Trademark that. See, we're already back into Moloch's machine. Turn it into a business to validate it so we can measure it, size it up, right? Oh, the fear, right? The fear around, well, what if somebody hears you say this? And next thing you know, it's a fucking bestseller, right? Well, what I am can't be concerned with that. What I am lacks the capacity to concern itself with any of that, meaning the answer to that is, well, I must be improperly identified if I'm thinking in business terms within this delusion of Moloch's machine. Are you crazy? And really, I'm asking myself rhetorically. I'm not really asking the listener. It's more of a just a rhetorical, are you crazy? That's what that was with that truck. He needed to be anointed. That back to the uncertainty, in the context of driving on the interstate, perhaps he really was, should be guilt riddled, right? And fearful and trepidatious. All right, what do we got? 38, 35 miles to the exit. So trying to pace myself here. I don't want to get too much on a roll. Although I guess worst case scenario, I could just keep yapping at the gas pump. And now I know from experience out here that these big rigs are going to fly up onto my ass, but they're not going to pass me. That's going to start happening. But what I'll do is when they start closing in, I'll hit my flashers and they'll go around. I'm wondering. I want to see what this guy does. He's already kind of slowing down to my speed a little bit. It's like he's going about 80 coming up on me. No, see, he's not pulling out. He's not pulling out the pass. I hit the flashers. As soon as I hit the flashers, he pulled out. So yeah, back to the old me, and then understanding that anybody that actually wants to practice some of this, and some of what I talk about, and like I say, everybody has their. I'm not, the only person who has knowledge in these areas, especially with respect to self development and managing of oneself. Anybody that makes it to the age of 50, they're going to have their own little tricks and tips for coping with, again, self management ultimately. Uh, and then a lot of this I'm seeing in TikTok video, not in TikTok. I don't watch TikTok, but a lot of that filters down, and other people, YouTube channels make content out of it, reacting to TikToks. And, I saw a recent Caleb Hammer financial audits, and there was this woman on there that claims to be some sort of social media manager. And again, these aren't even jobs, right? It's just she's whatever version of hustler slash scammer she is, or there's just pilled out dumb people somewhere that will pay for coaching, whatever that is, right? And so she gets some money from reading people's astrological charts, but a lot of it is like what lonely people who just think she's cool on some level, and she comes across as put together, and she's dumb though. She's an actual dumb person. Well, there's dumber people that will think of her as smart, and most dumb people don't know they're dumb also. And I'm dumb in ways, of course, but I mean, I'm talking like across the board dummies. It's a real thing. And I could tell from watching her interaction with Caleb, I said, oh, this is a dumb person. And TikTok has taught them frame control, which is more or less like no matter what happens in an interaction, I will always, and I don't do this anymore. I did for a time, and it annoyed the fuck out of some people. And it unfortunately, air quotes, works in the context of dating relationships, or it did at that time. I mean, who knows? But it's to never buy into what the other person is putting forth. It's to always identify with my own frame of reference for the interaction. So every curveball, which was an obvious thing, everything Caleb Hammer tried to throw at her, she immediately refused to buy into what he was saying, but not through resistance, not through arguing, although eventually, the mask slipped, and I'm not a huge fan of that, but eventually as she became, her internal space probably became stressful enough. And, she is on a podcast being recorded, and there's people in the room laughing at certain parts. And it's an artificial, Truman Show, not even Truman Show, but it's an artificial, sort of thing, unreality and surrealism just baked into the cake but in this case, just overtly observable in the environment. That's how comfortable, in certain ways, people are so desensitized to unreality and surrealism. You know, it's a thing for sure. And so I could see it from her patterns. And apparently Talcott's been talking about patterns a lot. But like the third time I saw her maintain frame control, I'm like, oh, this is a dumb person who watched TikToks that told her what frame control is. And now she's doing it. But then, of course, eventually she was just unable to, because, and how is that accomplished? Well, it could be accomplished by living righteously, and the other person is coming with some unrighteous bullshit. Or it could be, well, I know I'm acting with a specific goal, and this other person, while technically correct, I'm not going to allow them to sort of put their own stink onto what I'm suggesting here, what I'm putting forth in the conversation. But then, eventually, speaking for myself, it's like, I'm seeking to agree with as much of what the other person is saying as possible. Now, some of that is probably, again, back to the mind control of my youth, the Jehovah's Witnesses and all of this, which I never joined, but I was raised, going to the Kingdom Hall by my parents. That was one of the ways they chose to sacrifice me to Moloch's machine. Right? Gotta let them know. Yeah. Every truck that catches us, we're going to put the flashers on, let them pass. Because they're all going to be going 25 miles over the speed limit once we get into Cali. It's probably going to feel like some kind of trap that I'm out here going. I used to go 55 through here to really save on fuel. That was in the old 99 Hyundai Accent. But now I go 65. And if I drive 75, it's 20 to 25% more fuel that the car uses. So 65 is where it's at for me. And, looking back on all this frame control nonsense, the reason why it's nonsense is because it all exists externally within delusion. So it's like, yeah, it can only ever serve Moloch's machine if I'm out here manipulating and being controlling and again, assertive, aggressive, dominant, right? And all of those things, you know. So in the long run, that's a Pyrrhic victory, because it's like, yeah, I had women anyway. Like I had girlfriends and wives anyway. It's like, yeah, I understand that I learned a bunch of interpersonal nonsense, and it's not nonsense in a way. Actually, I would say it's a version of learning the rules to break the rules. Meaning, now it's very obvious to me when and even like the 48 Laws of Power book, right? Like I didn't read that. By the time I read 48 Laws of Power, it wasn't because, oh, now I'm going to be Machiavellian. It was because, well, I'm interested intellectually, and then also probably other people. This has gotten to be such a popular book. Other people are going to be knowing some of this, so I want to be able to spot it when I see it, right? So it's like it's got society has, it's just straight clown shoes when I can see some Dumbo lady, a complete scam artist, although she's certainly lying to herself about that. And she even attempted to read Caleb's birth chart. I was listening to this going like I could actually, like I would never read somebody's fucking birth chart for them. And it's like, meanwhile, I could do twice as good as her, and I'm not even paying attention to astrology right now. It's like just based on what I've not forgotten yet about astrology, I could do better than this. She's just a dumb person. I wonder what the elevation is. Where are we at? And so until the person can answer for themselves the how and the why and the where and the what and all of this, what I see is a lot of dumbos, you know, wandering around metaphorically, uh, just, you know, and that's the greatest word of mouthing of all is TikTok, right? It would have to be just go on it's reached the point where like TikTok is self-help. And again, I've never been on there. This is just based on what I see that trickles out. You know, how many people actually pay coaches for things like, you know, women that want to meet a man or whatever? It's like what I'm seeing is it's mostly they meet the coach on TikTok, right? And so now there's these layers, these transparent, right? Like, because it's supposed to be something of a poker game, right? Subterfuge and deception. It's so now just face up or transparent. Like I just see the games, like I just watch it happen. It's like, wow, really? And I shouldn't be surprised. But then, you know, I realized years ago how ridiculous it was to have, you know, seemingly mastered a certain area of, you know, dating and relationships or whatever, and actually was paid money at times to, you know, counsel others. But I didn't see that as a way to make money or as an identity. It was more like, hey, man, like, yeah, I'll break off a chunk of my time, but you're going to have to give me a few bucks here. Right. It wasn't like, oh, I can make money doing this. Either way, it wouldn't have mattered. Same fucking thing. And that's more to show that I did have some level of attainment and knowledge. But eventually I realized just it's a ridiculous thing to do. But I also saw the benefit of learning all those rules because then the person they are free to break the rules. Meaning, like if I wanted to get into a relationship, I can do all the stereotypical nice guy stuff, and I'll be able to do it in a way, or I'll do it in the way I choose, and it'll still quote work, right? In a context anyway, because I'm now able to break the rules, you know. But I always was to some extent. I just wasn't aware of the rules. And didn't somebody wrote a book called The Rules, right? Because Neil Strauss came out with The Game, and then didn't a lady write the rules? I think that was sort of the response. That was sort of the you know, thesis antithesis was Neil Strauss's The Game, and then the rules came out. Pretty sure that's what happened. And I knew back then. I said, "Oh man, this is not good," because you know, because the women were already playing games, and then now they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, they're playing. They know we're playing games, and now they're playing games." So it's like, okay, game on, right? It's like it unlocked like an entirely new level of gamemanship, which is just yeah. There for a time when I was learning about it, it was kind of fun, but yeah, you know, the autism, you know, the hyper focus and the interest. It's like, yeah, once I'm done with a topic, I'm done with it. So then I begin to view it as very foolish. It's like, what the fuck even is all this? And now I'm just hearing like just random women talking about like detachment from the outcome. It's like, yeah, man, I understand that me and a bunch of dudes chose to learn that being detached from the outcome so we could physically walk up to some women that actually wanted to talk to us anyway. And then now they're going to play hard to get because that's what they do. But they actually want us to come talk to them, right? So that it's the male training himself to overcome the fear of rejection, right? And a part of that is understanding we're not able to control the outcome unless we're, you know, certain folks actually ran afoul of the law at various times by maybe crossing that line, right? It's not a line I was ever going to cross, being a respecter of persons. And at some point along here, we're going through the agricultural checkpoint, which my strategy is always, now that I've figured out what the fuck it is. The first time I pulled into it, I had no idea what it was. They were wanting to ask me a bunch of questions. I was like, yeah, man, like I might answer your questions, but I don't know what this is. Like, could you please explain to me what's happening here? It's like, oh, this is an agricultural checkpoint, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, am I going to be allowed into California? And they're like, well, you're in California. I said, yeah, I know. I've been stopped. I was like, I'm just confused. Like, I'm not out here soft sitting fucking, you know, and I knew about all that stuff even back then. Like, I'm not out here on the soft citizen type shit, but if I don't want to answer, I'm not going to answer. But they're like, yeah, we just want to know if you have fucking fruits and vegetables from out of state. I was like, no, I don't. But thank you for explaining. Right. So now you just sort of act like you know what which I do. I just know what non-verbally convey to the agent that I know the deal and just let me through. And if they want to stop me, they'll stop me. But probably they'll wade me through. And all that sob sit First Amendment, I'm down with all that in a way, but it's like you can tell the emotional states of most of those folks. It's not a proper, their internal space is all fucked off. And they could communicate the exact same things, but do it in a way without being angry or agitated or hateful or shitty, right? And again, improperly identified. Like, and what are they improperly identified with? The idea that this agent has any authority whatsoever. It's like, yeah, within a delusion called Moloch's machine, this person can, seize my vehicle, potentially search my vehicle. Like, there's things that can happen within a delusion, right? Uh, at the end of the day, I don't have control over that. And then if I'm the fear and the anger and all of that is a direct result from identifying with the reality of the realm itself as if it's not, in fact, a delusion. Now, I think the danger for a lot of folks is that a lot of folks will go off the deep end of some version of a Clockwork Orange style hyper, what do they call it, ultra violence, where it's like, oh, okay, well now it's Grand Theft Auto. It's like, no, that's the wrong direction. I'm talking about still being an honorable, righteous, proper person from my own perspective, but recognizing that, I've taken the realm far too seriously my whole life. And, why so serious? And not to bring up the Joker or any of that, or Batman, but again, thesis, antithesis, in a way. In a way. But yeah, where are we at? We got 18 miles. So yeah, I can slow my roll a little bit. I could tell I was sort of hitting on some topics earlier, and then it got to be a little too scattershot. And I, as a human, like my spirit, like what I am, it does have a desire to be of service and to help people. But I mean, to genuinely help them. And a lot of the ways I can actually help people is if, and this is a lot of ifs and a lot of qualifiers, but like if they're actually applying a thought process and thinking for themselves, and they're actually able to make themselves do things that are difficult, if they can force themselves out of their own comfort zones. So a person who's doing versions of that already, if they happen upon me, it's like, yeah, I'm probably a little farther down that road. So what I did as a young person, I gathered a lot of knowledge, especially before I was on the internet. Anytime I came across a person that I could tell knew the first fucking thing about any topic I was interested in, I was skilled at asking them specific questions that were tailored to get the information that I saw would be valuable to me. That's a skill unto itself. Okay. And so if people aren't going to want to try to do all of what I'm talking about for themselves within themselves, which I've mostly done while simultaneously taking bits and pieces of information here and there and leaving the rest as I'm supposed to do. But it can be a resource and a bit of a shortcut. And, of course I would, that would be some version of fulfillment for me, in those moments where, even a limited example of Highly Suspect, when he was, for a short period of time, seemingly dealing with some of his issues. And, to actually be able to help him because he was asking me certain questions. And then I could see based on where he was in his progression. And I said, okay, and watch out for this thing because probably this specific obstacle is going to be a problem. And here's what to look for. And here's how I got around it, or here's how I overcame it. And in fact, later on, I learned that I was accurate in my prediction. And then, he would at least had the solution in the moment. Like that is can be an exponential benefit. And I'm still here, right? Like spiritually, it doesn't seem like I'm able to Alan Watts it, and meaning to artificially end the experience earlier. And yeah, I can just go fucking smoke weed and eat mushrooms or whatever. But even the mushrooms, I think, is not even really a thing spiritually anymore for me. I'm pretty sure I got whatever I was supposed to get out of it. But yeah, I might, for my own entertainment, eat whatever that is that they sell in the head shops in San Francisco, which is, I don't know if it has psilocybin in it or not. Maybe it's some kind of, how they have THC, Delta 9 THC, and then there's all this Delta 8 and all these other compounds. It might be some version of that. I don't fucking know. But well, I mean, what else am I really going to do? Wander around on foot? I came very close to just. And it's inconsiderate, so I wouldn't have done this. But and I did not want to. And in fact, Barstow would be a much better place to do this because I could just leave. I know where there's a dumpster already where I can just pull up next to the dumpster and I can just take everything out of the car. I'm realizing now I don't have a tarp, but if I had a tarp, I could lay everything on the tarp and just put in my car whatever I'm going to take, and then just leave everything else like next to the dumpster, and it won't even be there an hour later. Like, that's the level of scavenging going on in Barstow. But bit by bit, right? Instead of jumping into the deep end of the pool, as I probably should, right? Or I could, bit by bit, I'm getting down to, maybe that is my future, is it just to entirely. And in fact, it reminds me, I don't think I told you folks that I tried to give a particularly homeless looking old man on downtown in Fort Smith. I tried to hand him a $20 bill and he would not take it. Now, looking back on it, I'm wondering, maybe his eyesight is so poor he didn't know what I was trying to hand him. I'm not exactly sure, but I respect, by the way. Well, is that the first by the way? But anyway, let's try not to do that. My Tourette's like tick of saying by the way, almost obsessively. I'm actually going to pass a semi. Wow, what happened here? And not that I would probably never. Welcome to California. Oh, he's actually going to go the California speed limit. That's what it is. Welcome to California. San Bernardino County line. San Bernardino County line. San Bernardino. Two trucks don't let me pass them. I wonder if they've been out here writing tickets or something. Oh, you know what? They probably have what I have. I bet you they've got the driver. If they're company drivers, they probably got the driver-facing cameras, or they could be owner-operators and just to get cheaper insurance. They probably have the disembodied female voice telling them to slow down if they go over like 58 miles an hour. I bet that's what happened. As soon as they hit the fucking state line, something in their cab started nagging them. I almost guarantee it. Yeah, crazy, man. AI running our lives. It's real, man. It's happening. It's happening. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll always take people, and that's alms giving. That's what alms is. I was attempting to give him alms, and this is what I've talked about before. That giving is receiving, because in fact, I had a desire to give to him, and he, by refusing to receive it, not that he owes me that, because he certainly doesn't, but it prevented me from being able to, give alms because he was not willing to accept them. And from walking past him a couple of more times, I think he was probably actually insane, or probably had pretty serious dementia, or whatever that is. So who even knows? So that's when I bought the bums, the methed out drunk bums pizza. At Little Caesars. Because man, some old man was giving her the fucking business, man, and she's Gen Z in there trying to, in there slaving away for some corporation, probably a single mom, with some worthless dude, may either in the picture or not in the picture, right? And it's in Fort Smith. It's a very specific socioeconomic thing, right? Like this is, on some level, it is that whatever she's getting paid to work at Little Caesars, that is considered a desirable wage in the town. I mean, I know that sounds insane, but whatever $11 an hour she's making, maybe 12, shift manager, whatever the fuck she is. And the old me, I might have intervened. He was just being shitty for no reason, man. She told him what was up. It's like, yeah, man, once they told you what's up, like what's this persisting, right? And she probably wasn't even, I don't think he was right and she was wrong. I think he was just confused, maybe. And look at the cognitive decline of the populace. Maybe his brain's not working. And when she finally came around to me, I was like, on behalf of old men everywhere, I'd like to apologize for that fella's behavior. You know, and I said, she's like, well, what can I do for you? And it's like, yeah, I was going to buy 2 pizzas, but I said, all I'm going to do is give them to some drunk bums. I said, shit, I think after what I just saw, I'd rather you just have the $20 bill. And then she's at first really like she started not to take it. And I was like, okay, well, I said, either way, I mean, they're drunk bums. I mean, whatever we're doing. I mean, they'll either have the pizza or they won't. And then she's like, okay, I'll take it and I'll just give you the pizzas anyway. It's like, all right, well, okay. Works for me. I remember I had a flat tire one time and managed to limp to a Walmart. And I think on the donut, but the donut was low. But yeah, we made it. We limped it to a Walmart, and the kid, and I say kid, just it's really me calling myself old. The kid, and I'm a tipper. I just like to tip when I've got it like that. And I gave him when he was finally done with everything. It took a while. He was new, but he did a good job. I gave him $20, and he was like very, very thankful. And he was more or less like, "Hey, I just started this job. Like, I'm not getting a paycheck for a while." And he's basically was like, "Now I can eat." And it's been that way. Oh yeah, we're getting pulled into inspection. This is the inspection station. Hang on, I got to make sure I don't accidentally go into the trucks section. All right, where do we go? Since I am a truck driver, here's my little lane. Roll down the window in case they want to talk to us. Leave the window up. That's a power move, right? They're actually going to come out. No inspection today. Proceed with caution. No, there you go. Shout out to Trump, right? That's got to be a Trump thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a California budget thing. It's like, yeah, man, we're because that's been in the news, and I don't want to get too much into that, but you know, apparently California really did just let a bunch of new people to the country have their really good free health care called Medi-Cal, right? Apparently that really happened. So maybe I should wait on this guy to get up to speed. Yeah, we'll just wait on him. Or is he actually going to go 55? I don't know. We'll find out. And so now apparently their budget deficit is more or less exactly the amount of money that they supposedly spent to get all these uh, new people to the country free health insurance. Millions and millions of people. So I don't know. Maybe they can't afford somebody to be there at 2 in the morning or whatever time it is. 6:27. Is that right? No, that's not right. 4:20. 3:27. Yeah, we're on Pacific time. But then Arizona fucks it all up because they don't have daylight savings time. So it even daylight Arizona's so diabolical. It even fucks StreamYard up. Because I tried to tell StreamYard when to schedule the stream, and it's like wait a minute, that's in the past. And I'm like, well, actually, it's not. But StreamYard hasn't even figured out what the time is where I'm at. Uh, StreamYard doesn't understand that Arizona doesn't have daylight savings time. There it is, 55 maximum. Autos with trailers and trucks. 55. Slow your roll, partner. All right, coming up on our exit. Got to make sure we don't miss it. Because I ain't turning this bitch around. It's going to save me at least, I'd say 8. If I had a lower gas tank, but it's going to save me. It won't really matter. But elevation, yeah, we're under 1,000 feet now. Good deal. Kingman may not be that high. I should have checked probably, but maybe I should have spent another night there. And if I am going to the Bay, San Francisco, I could get all the way there today. It's like 615 miles, I think, but I'd be driving like it just into rush hour, and their traffic is particularly bad there. It's like, yeah, probably not going to do that. And that's an if. I don't even know where I'm going at this point. It's part of the fun, I suppose. But yeah, it's going to save, I don't know, like $8 probably at minimum. You trying to miss this last exit. Last fuel, and we're in Cali, so people may say, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, it's I finally figured this out. When I take this exit up here, it goes to Arizona. It's like just barely Arizona. So I forget the name of the town. Filippo or something. ThalYpo. Just this little town. There's an Arco there. It's like 289 or something like that. 298, whatever it was. Which is kind of funny because if you go past this exit, I remember the first time I went into Cali, I didn't understand. I didn't really know what was going on, and I guess I must have failed to get gas in Kingman, and I ended up having to get fuel at like these first gas stations in California that are just insanely expensive. And I did not know that I could take this exit up here and be back in Arizona briefly. We figured out, oh, Gas Buddy, that's the app that eventually clued me in. Oh, okay. I see. Shout out to the chat and the replay crew. The few, the proud, the replay crew. Looks like the signal's going to hold up. Hopefully. All right. Yeah, see, there's already Cali gas. See, these gas stations are, this is California, so this is, oh, and see, there's a sign now. I must not, in the past, this sign must not have been here, but there's actually a billboard that says, hey, if you go to Filippo, it's fucking 287, partner. Because this exit, I think it's like $8. Like, no kidding. I think they're just price gouging. It's like, fuck it, why not? And rich people just don't care. Like actual rich people, they just pull in and get gas. They don't even, doesn't matter what the price is. Oh, there's what's that, a dispenser? Huh. Interesting. Of course there is. 24 hours? I don't think I'm in the market at present. And there's truck washes right here on the state line because apparently, I don't know if this is still the case, but in the olden days, apparently all the truckers knew to get their truck washed as soon as they got into California because supposedly they would get more likely to get pulled over and inspected if they had a dirty truck. I have no idea if that's true or not. And that could have been something that was just started by, people that, owned truck washes on the state line in California. And then Bullhead City is in Nevada. That's not too far from here. But if y'all don't know anything about Nevada, apparently Nevada is extremely strict. If a person's anywhere but pretty much Vegas or maybe Reno. So I was looking at some, because there's some motels up there that might have been affordable. I was looking at this. One of the reviews, the guy's like, it's a fucking speed trap and the cops will follow you out of town and, hope you go 1 mile over the speed limit so they give you a ticket or whatever. He's like, I'm never coming here again. So it's like, yeah, there's no reason for me to drive up into Nevada just to maybe get fucked with. Pointless. But yeah, Bullhead City. And we're in California, but the sign has the shape of It says to Highway 95 and it has the shape of the state of Nevada. So it's like, I don't know if I've ever noticed that. Yes, this is 579 right here. And I know it was even worse, the exit before. 8 foot morning underpass. I wonder if this is one of them ones where big rigs and straight trucks crash into it all the time. There's Amtrak's going by. It's a railroad. I might have to take a break here. I'm feeling like it might be a bathroom break. I would have hung out in the room a little longer if I knew this was going to happen. My bathroom habits get thrown off a little bit sometimes when I'm willy-nilly bebopping around. Is it? Wait a minute. Oh, okay. For a second, it looked like it was putting me back on the interstate. I was like, what the fuck? But no, we're beside the interstate. Okay, I think we're almost there. It's just 5 more minutes. Now, do they have a bathroom? Going from memory, I think they do. I don't know, man. Do I really want to do this to those people? I don't know, man. Ah, shit. Literally. Maybe I was in Arizona in that little corner there. I actually don't. Yeah, that may have been Arizona. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Thinking about that road sign back then. Yeah, here's the Bullhead City. Make a left here. Goes to Nevada. Pretty quick. There's more weed stores, smoke shops. All right. Once I get there, we're going to be on break, and then I'll be back. Appreciate y'all riding along. Man, where's the loves, man? I got shower credits. Whatever I got going on, I might prefer to have as much privacy as possible here. Trying to avoid the TMI. This may not be good. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go on break. I'll be back. We back. I think I'm back. I'll try to avoid the TMI on the bathroom break, but yeah, it was interesting. Uh, I think it was a good thing. My body's doing something that it normally doesn't do, but either way, feeling pretty good about it. Let's try not to go from memory. I think there's like a truck stop and a big fuel stop across the street. I think it's out of business. Although it looks like there's people getting fuel. Maybe the inside is closed and they're still selling fuel. I don't know. It's kind of strange. So at first I was going to go destroy their bathroom instead of this poor fella who's, the bathroom is right by where he stands, to be a clerk. Poor little feller. Anyway, hang on. Let's have navigation take us there. Back to the highway. 3.3 miles. Who'd have thunk it? Going across the Colorado River. Hey, what's up, Razvan? Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're out here in the sticks, man. I mean, not really. We're 3 miles from a major interstate. All right. Here we go. Oh, I do need to reset my trip meter. Yeah, in case we want to check the fuel. I should have reset this other one when I started the day. I like to know how many miles I've driven for the day, but I can add approximately 70 miles to that, I guess, for later if I need to. This is taking us back a different way, I think. Looks like it is. Whoa. It's a little bit bigger of a highway than I realized. I almost pulled out in front of somebody here. All right. A little bit faster of a highway than I anticipated. Maybe they were just temporarily closed. It looks like it's back open. The first place, the place across the street I tried to go to. Yeah, let me get up on the freeway. We'll find something to yap about. Yeah, this is the way I'm used to coming. The GPS brought me in a different way. Though I think I've seen those dispensaries before. Yeah, my stomach's a little tore up. I don't know. Maybe probably the eggs, man. Sometimes those eggs, and especially being on the road, these they got up to room temperature or whatever, and then I put them in the fridge in the motel rooms. That's probably what it is. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did I bother to smell them? Sometimes I've never had them be bad. I don't think I've ever had a bad egg, but I may not have gave these a sniff test. It doesn't even matter. I eat so many eggs, I'd be fucking shocked if eggs could do anything to me at this point. Famous last words, but Pancho Villa's Taco Shop. How about that? And wait a minute. Oh, we did come this way. I'm just tripping. Okay, never mind. Tripping. It's a pretty nice car wash. I kind of like my patina, my dirty patina on my car. Plus, dude, the hails beat the fuck out of this the metal on this car. It's like actually, I think if I washed it, it would look worse. The dings would be more obvious. And I don't know how this happens, but the hail, I guess, was so big. I don't know if it came in sideways or maybe it bounced off the vehicles next to me, but there's dents like in the side of the door, right? Yeah, this is the way we came. Never mind. Tripping, tripping, bit. Really good beef jerky. There's a whole store, a beef jerky store. Huh. Interesting. Uh oh, we're turning left here. Okay. All right, but pay attention. Oh shit, spilling coffee. Damn it. Damn it. Put the coffee on myself. All right, bear with me, folks. We're getting there. There, what's that? A tunnel? Where the hell does that go? Oh, it's a pedestrian tunnel. Fascinating. Yeah, we spilled coffee all over ourselves. Motherfucker, this shit's hot. Oh my god. Is the cup leaking? What the fuck is going on here? This is crazy. I think maybe this cheap ass cup is leaking. Yeah, I failed to screw the lid on properly. That's what it was. Operator error. That's like some hot coffee in the crotch. Good thing we're homeless and we know to have dark colored clothing. That was egregious. Egregious. Here we go. I-40 east to Barstow. Now, this is west. What the fuck? Oh yeah, we are going west. I'm tripping. See, that's my brain does that. It's I don't know that it's dyslexia, but my brain just fucking reverses stuff sometimes. I'm like, wait a minute, west. Like, yeah, you're going west, bozo. Bozo. Bozo the live streamer. Seemed like a nice little town there. A little rundown, but not too bad. Bet it gets hot as fuck out here in the summer. Here's 95 North, Las Vegas, exit 9 miles. I guess that's for the LA folks to come up this way, but not from the direction I'm coming from. I guess that's probably the exit. Or I don't know. Don't they go to Barstow? I don't fucking know. Look at the map. All right. Yeah, 559, and that's not even the expensive Cali stuff out here. I saw one of them on a gas buddy was like eight. It was like $8. What the fuck? So that's one thing about the media. You'll hear them talking about $8 gas. It's like, yeah, there's $8 gas, but there's no reason to buy the $8 gas. It's not necessary to buy the $8 gas. It's not required. I think when I left Echo Park, it was like 4.29, and now it's like $5. So yeah, it's more, but it went up 30 cents when I was in Fort Smith. It's like, what the fuck? While I was there, all at one time. Hmm. All right, bear with me, folks. So, as y'all know, those stops. Sometimes I get into a little bit too much of a thoughtful, contemplative mode. It takes me a little bit to get out of my reverie, as it were. Whereas if I keep yapping uninterrupted, it doesn't seem to happen. Yes, sir. I'm actually going 65 on purpose. I know it sounds insane, but that's what I'm doing. Coffee's pretty good, other than the extreme temperature. That's a very Moloch's machine business. The strength of the country. Being the corporations and all of this. That woman that got all that money supposedly from McDonald's back in the day. And, your more Reagan Republican types, like to talk about how ridiculous that is. And it's like, yeah, if you look into it, actually, they scalded her flesh. She needed medical attention, and all she was asking was if they paid, because culturally, it really was, especially back then, it was kind of unseemly to just try to get some money for pain and suffering. And they refused to do anything whatsoever, which it makes sense from a corporate standpoint because they know once they admit fault, they're actually opening themselves up to further liability potentially. But that's how the whole lawsuit came about, is because they refused to pay her medical bills, and then she sued. And I'm sure whatever she walked away with was far less than whatever she was originally awarded. It's like, yeah, if they scalded the flesh of her fucking inner thighs and her crotch, like, why shouldn't they have to reimburse her for that, or compensate her for that? Isn't that how the system's supposed to work? Especially if the coffee was like provably way too fucking hot. Negligence, sir. Negligence. But it's the idea that, oh, well, can you believe these courts and juries and this crazy woman trying to get money for nothing? Like, yeah, that's not what happens. It's a large corporation, because they decided strategically it was better for their bottom line, although they were wrong in this case. But they made a choice based on having nothing to do with her humanity or her. Again, now she's out of pocket because she had to go to the doctor or whatever. And they didn't want anything to do with it. And I saw myself with the workman's comp when I broke my foot. I realized that, and I maxed that shit out. I got, it's like 700 something a week for 3 months. But I realized at the end of the day, that was actually, it's not to compensate the worker. It's the purpose of that is that they will have the evidence if I try to sue them later. Like, now they've sent me to the doctor. They have access to the medical records, and because later on my foot did start hurting. So I actually called an injury lawyer just to see. They're like, yeah, man, that's not a thing. They looked into it, of course. And really, I think looking back on it, it was just my own like my illness and, whatever problems I'd had with my malabsorption or whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. And that's all I cared about was like, hey, man, replace my wages for the most part. You know, it was like 75% of what I would have made probably. And then I was in bed for 3 months. But all I cared about was, is my foot going to be normal? And, I'd say mostly normal as far as I have full movement in it. It doesn't bother me at all. Sometimes it feels a little funny in my right heel. I get kind of a weird feeling. But it was getting to where it was hurting there for a while. And looking back on it, I think it was more related to my overall health than, you know, anything else. But if I had, if I knew I could just go live with, that was, I also had when I got real sick with the Delta, the jab, not the jab, the COVID. And, if I could have just stayed at my mom's that whole time and just lived off of my money, then I could have just not filed for workman's comp. And then I probably would have got like 50 grand or something. I don't know what they would have offered on something like that. But I didn't even care. I had enough on my plate back then. Yes, sir. What up, VC? Good to see you. Image of what? I've already forgot what I was talking about. VC. Oh, McDonald's. Talking about the McDonald's thing. Somehow, when I was in college, we got to be friends with some dude that was not a college student, but I guess he was around our age, and he wanted somebody to break his wrist so he could do a slip and fall at the store and like try to get paid. And, that was pretty fucked up. I think there were some actual attempts to fuck him up, but it was like I didn't want anything to do with it. I was like, hey man, whatever. But I think y'all are nuts. You're gonna try to stage a slip and fall, with an actual injury to try to get paid. I don't know, man. And this proper identification, consistent with what I now know myself to be. I can see it's definitely not going to be great for the life. It's like way more shit to have, way less things to complain about, right? Old man yells at cloud is not quite so much of a thing anymore, right? And then I'm wondering about truck driving, man. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I'm done with truck driving. And then part of the whatever that was I woke up with this morning that I was able to get out of pretty quick. And a lot of that is physiological, and it's like right when I wake up in the morning, if I start mulling things over. But it was some notion of, for truck driving, there's a thing called a DAC report, and some of these companies will put bad things about the driver on this DAC report, and it's a formal thing. And then if I try to get new jobs, and I'm pretty sure this company doesn't isn't known for that, but I mean they still could. And some companies don't even look at it at all when they hire. But I'm starting to wonder about these being watched by this AI and these driver-facing cameras. I'm starting to wonder, they would actually, if they wanted to, they could put stuff on my DAC report and actually have the evidence. Because some people get false stuff put on their report and then they're able to appeal and have it removed or whatever. And there is a version of being blackballed. I mean, that can be a thing. Probably not in a vacuum. It's probably somebody who already had a spotty record and finally just nobody would hire them. But I can't say for sure, but I'm starting to suspect my time as a trucker may be over. Probably I'm going to go ahead and I'll make sure before I run out of money, if that happens. I mean, it's not a given, but if I run out of before I run out of money, I'm going to go ahead and get another physical. My DOT medical card expires in December of this year, so I'm going to go ahead and do that at some point. And I've got my license, my Arkansas license for I guess it's 5 years. So just it's a good to have just in case. But I know California. I don't know about Oregon and Washington. It's probably much the same. But I don't want to. I don't really want to drive a truck out here anyway. It'd have to be some version of a local job. I have no interest in going up and down I-5 in the fucking wintertime. I've never had to put chains on the truck on the tires, and I'm pretty sure I'm never going to. I, mostly where I've driven a truck, they don't even. There's not even chains required. That's generally only ever out west. And then back to the idea of a work-life balance and Moloch's machine, like, and that hours of service, that whole idea that it's, oh well, it's for safety, because truck drivers, the old cliche, the old trope of the trucker on speed, they didn't call it meth back then, the trucker on speed, white knuckling it, and the danger to the roadways. Then the idea that it's better to have the hours of service. But from my perspective, it means that if I try to work as a trucker, like even just in the town or like, San Francisco, if I had a California license, I know Amazon, it is like $35 an hour just more or less taking a trailer from one Amazon facility to another Amazon facility around the bay, which, yeah, the traffic's horrible, but I think they only work like 3 or 4 days a week or something and still make a good check. But the thing is, there's really no version of having an 8 hour workday. It's like, why do I have to? It's a 14-hour clock. You got 14 hours to drive 11. Like, oh, I don't want to work. Why do I have to work that much? It's just crazy to me. I don't understand it. Like, why are there no jobs? And I know people will immediately try to say that there are, but effectively there's not. Yeah, maybe if I worked in one town, eventually I could find some version of that. That's not even what I'm talking about. There's effectively no version of just finding a job and getting hired. And it's like, oh yeah, we just need you like 8 hours a day. It's no, there's a clock and we're going to maximize your clock. And that's business and deal with it. Sometimes those guys, I've seen before, sometimes those guys in the sleeper trucks, they can't even, something happens and they can't even get back and they don't have a sleeper. So they have to check into a hotel or whatever. It's like, yeah, home every night. They advertise a job as home every night. It's like, well, yeah, unless some shit goes down and I have to stay at a hotel, because I can't legally fucking drive away. Like, what? And me living in the truck as a long haul driver, it solves a lot of those problems. It's just like, well, I'm just here either way. So what's the difference? The problem there is when the truck breaks down, or, what I've talked about before, it's just expected that if I discover, a tire needs to be replaced, or, a light goes out on the trailer en route, like it's just expected that, if I'm not able to do it during my shift, that I'll just have it done on my 10-hour break. And then I can't be in my truck. It's like, that's where I take my break, is in the truck. Like, what are we doing here? And it's almost impossible in the long run to just ever truly get comfortable as an over the road driver. There is a luck of the draw effect where maybe, there at times, and things went relatively well with this company. I ran into a bunch of problems with the trailers. I was a little rusty and in fact backed up over a curb and tore a fucking mud flap off of the trailer at one point. And then I just chose to YOLO and I actually drove some trailers with some lights out here and there. I was just like, fuck it, I'm not even dealing with this. And got away with it. Because that's part of the benefit of driving early in the morning. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get inspected. It's like, yeah, I can't guarantee it. But pretty high likelihood. But then I am giving the problem to the next driver. But yeah, man. And then I'm expected to wake a lady up at 2 a.m. if I want to get it fixed en route. And they can say till they're blue face, oh yeah, we don't mind. It's our job. We knew this when we took the job. It's like, yeah, I'm still calling a human being and they're waking up out of deep sleep. Like, I'm just not into that. Maybe that's me being too sensitive. That's fine. But, when I worked with the big company, they had staff who were awake and at a computer somewhere, right? So it wasn't a hassle. And there was that was if I had to talk to them at all. Probably if I went to the right shop, there was just, the people at the shop would probably just call my company and take care of it, right? Let them handle it. And it's gotten so bad. Here's the AI and the dystopia and the delusion and the realm of death and destruction and Moloch and all of this. Moloch's machine. At this point, it's almost to where I would say for a lot of drivers that just want to do long haul, at this point, it's probably better to work for a big company, honestly. And I mean one of the biggest of the big. I don't mean like a larger mom and pop. I mean like one of the big boys. Looking at Snyder, the company I work for, they have like, not all of their operating centers are huge and nice, but they have at least one that they built as a brand new facility. They built it, tens of millions of dollars in the Dallas Fort Worth area. It's mom and pops don't have that. Uh, that's a big, especially somebody that lives on the road. That's a big benefit, or can be. And then even the rundown kind of shitty operating centers are still something, right? And if I'm going to get harassed, and that was one of the things I didn't like about Snyder was a constant harassment around, you know, being monitored by computer systems and then saying you're following too close, and having to talk to the safety manager and they know I'm a good driver and I know it's bullshit, but it's just sort of, workplace theater at that level. But now this was horrible experience from that perspective, and I still, part of me is like, is it the realm itself spiritually attacking me? Because this is the first job I've ever been hired for where they knew they were putting me in a 75-mile-an-hour truck. I had it with Balkan. They thought it. Sure, they turned it down as soon as they were able to. And then, like a month later, turned my truck down to 68 without telling me, and then probably, I guess, sent a WhatsApp message to all the drivers that I only skimmed and didn't. I guess I must have missed the point where they said if you keep speeding, we're going to turn your truck down to 68. Because then later they sent another message that said that or maybe they didn't warn me. I don't even fucking know. And I'm not offended by that. Like I understand the part where it's their truck and they're going to do whatever they're going to do with it. But very strange, man. Very strange. And then by then I was properly identified within myself. So it's like, yeah, well, spiritual attack. If this is a spiritual attack, it's not going to work. And then I got with the psychology of this fella Carl. I felt like he was into a little bit of the sort of a bully tactic, or maybe just psychologically sort of into, you know, sort of putting people in their place or humiliating them or whatever, which is, it's kind of interesting because, I don't have a personality. I have a personality that can't tolerate being bullied or whatever, but, or historically hasn't been able to. Hold on, we're having to drive a little bit here. And even when I first started dealing with him, before proper identification was a thing, I recognized I'm pretty sensitive to those dynamics. And, I developed myself to the point where it's like there has to be something in it for me to sort of stand up to this guy and, fight fire with fire. It's like realistically, I'm looking at the situation. It's like, yeah, I know what to do, but to sort of put this guy back on his heels, it's just not really worth it at a certain. It's just, why would I even bother? Let him, if he wants to think I'm something I'm not, like that's kind of on him, right? That's the way I see it. It's also strange because he's like a really big dude compared to me. And I'm thinking about it like, unless he's actually gonna do something to me physically, like that shit is fucking irrelevant. It's kind of like if you look at dogs, like sometimes in a pack of dogs, it's like the tiniest dog is the fucking most alpha or whatever. You know, uh, it's like unless he's actually gonna fucking do something to me, it doesn't fucking matter that he's so much bigger than me. It's like, yeah, I need, there has to be something in it for me. It's like I'm not gonna just. It's not high school, right? It's not junior high. Very bizarre though. Very bizarre. 29 Palms. I believe that's a military base, if I'm not mistaken. And actually, with that guy, you know, it could have came to just some version of like, he was fairly intelligent guy, I could tell, but not really in an educated form. He's a former Marine, so crayon eater, but definitely savvy and tuned in, and knew to play his cards close to his vest and maybe not reveal that he was a little more intelligent than he otherwise seemed or whatever. But pretty sure I could fairly easily outsmart him in a way to make him see that. All right, man, like I see what's going on here. I'm not going to expose you here, but just maybe just leave me alone. How about that? And then the whole thing when I let him, which I'm glad I did. I wouldn't have nearly as much money as right now, but just a little bit of the used car salesman type vibes. Not a fan of that. Man, this truck can't decide if he's going fast or slow. Is he taking me? What are you doing, brother? I got to go 60 out here, man. I guess so. Or maybe we're going uphill, and sometimes it's hard to tell at night. Yeah, we might actually be going uphill. I just can't tell. Either way, 2,700 feet elevation. I'm ready to get down somewhere near sea level and stay there. Driving on 40, just that little bit of high elevation, man, it did a number on me. I was wore the fuck out by 1 p.m. yesterday, and then with all the time changes, and with Arizona not having daylight savings time, at a certain point, it's like I don't even know what time my body thinks it is. Couldn't even tell. And again, I don't generally drive a truck out west. Sometimes I would go to Phoenix, but most of my trucking has been done more East Coast, Midwest, South, East Coast. But yeah, back to what I was saying earlier about being less and less, or actually not identified with the realm. What I mean, identified with my own nature inside of myself, and it really has been a game changer. I'm not sure that I've really brought home the point of and again, I'm never viewed myself as an anxious person or stressed out or whatever, but I believe it seems to me like everybody has their own versions of that. Some people they're way more neurotic or anxious. You know, I'm able to be stoic when I choose to be or whatever. But I don't even think stoicism is a thing personally. I think it's cope, and it's not an effective one in most cases. That's just my opinion. Uh, I think most people who view themselves or try to behave stoically, I don't. It's just not a real thing. I just don't believe it. Even then, I don't think it accomplishes what they think it accomplishes. That's my opinion. I think it's bullshit, personally. Especially when I look at the general population, it's like, yeah, well, I'm able to meditate and keep my fucking blood pressure down, and when I need to, and it's like, but then I'm also bombastic and you know excited and energetic a lot of the time. Like I just don't see that it's somehow this idea of just a man supposed to be stoic or whatever. I don't just never found that to be the case. And some people are that's just how they are, right? And that's fine. Not me. But yeah, when I need to just shut the fuck up and lock in and just sort of watch whatever's going to unfold. And, yeah, I've always been able to do that. So what's the fucking difference? But as far as the amount of anxiety, fear, whatever negative states of being that a person might want to talk about, I've experienced, I would say it's 90% less of what it would have been. And it's already minimized, right? I had already, through breathing and meditation and, whatever my techniques were, I had already brought it way down comparatively. But there were still times when it was like, okay, I know I got to just sit here and breathe and kind of wait this thing out, and just sort of watch the physiology until I get back to baseline. That's not even really a thing. That's happened maybe once or twice in the last 5 weeks, maybe. And even then, it's way less powerful than what it was before. It's almost like I'll start to go down that road and I just immediately catch it. So, and again, it's not a product I can package and sell to people, but it's like, hey, if people listen to me and, in some way believe some of what I'm telling them, uh, it's not really that I can say, okay, we'll go do all of these practices for 15 years and sort of, remove oneself from normal life some of the time, right? Or at least direct service of Moloch's machine and walk around and, it's not really a thing. A person would have to want to do it, again, of its own merits, right? Uh, but it seems achievable. And again, it's not something I unlocked through aggression or assertiveness or, what I've been calling AAD, aggression, assertiveness, and dominance. Man will dominate man unto his own injury, but it's something that came to me, a getting out of my own way, right? It just poof, and I don't really even remember the moment, and I'm sure it was some sort of epiphany and idea, but it all came together like mind, body, and spirit in that moment. It's like, aha, that's the thing, right? When thinking about a lot of these spiritual topics and God, like a lot of God stuff, right? And I'm realizing now just the primary error with any talk of God is to place that anywhere other than within myself. It's like, absolutely. Where? Within me. It's like, wait a minute, wait, that sounds heretical or blasphemous. It's like, okay, fine, but look at the churches. Look at the, the tree by the fruit. Look at religion in this country. Look at religion in the world and tell me how I'm blasphemous or heretical for, or being, it's heresy to say that. Yeah, if religion and churches were actually performing what they claim to perform, sure. But based on the nothing burger that I see coming out of churches, and in fact, more harm than good overall, religion, absolutely more harm than good. And we've talked about, humankind is unable to create and operate systems that are free from corruption. And, my own knowledge of demonic forces, unclean forces, wicked forces, spirits is where there's corruption, there will be those forces, which is, so again, that's everywhere outside of me. And then in the past, also within me were these forces to some extent. And then I'm almost certain it's not a thing anymore, but I must remain watchful. So again, bringing everything back to the sphere of influence, which is the only area that I have any power at all. Unless what? Unless I'm going to engage with AAD, aggression, assertiveness, and dominance. And then what's that going to be? Control, power, wielding power over others, power games, right? Forcefulness. That's not the way, man. That's the way to serving Moloch's machine, which is happy to reward people if based on how well and how thoroughly they serve Moloch's machine. I tried. I never made it. I never truly made a go of it when I was trying to serve Moloch's machine. And that probably tells us something, not about my acumen. Remember, I'm tested in the 99th percentile at least 30 years ago. I was, right, 25, 30 years ago. At one time, the government itself tested me in the 99th percentile for whatever it was looking for. For what? being able to do a job, based on details and reasoning and all this. Not even reasoning so much as just being able to figure it the fuck out based on some sort of closed loop system, right? And in the moment. And what I suspect that they would tell you is we actually don't want people in the 99th percentile unless they're actually high IQ and they're going to go into some sort of, high level job or whatever. They actually would not. They actually probably don't want people in the 99th percentile joining the military. But the point I'm making is it's not even that, oh, Benton's bad and he's this and he's that. It's like, well, except for I know how to make myself do shit. I've been able to exhibit a high work ethic and a high ability to put up with a bunch of nonsense. And furthermore, as far as attention to detail and, being able to operate within systems, I'm in the 99th percentile, perhaps, or I was. So that's even actually more evidence that something has always been there. I've been tapped into something spiritually within myself that even when I tried to serve Moloch's machine, I really wasn't ever able to do it. It was a failure to launch in a way, right? It's probably just my own talents and abilities allowed me to even rise to whatever low levels I rose to in IT, which certainly was not a high level, but it was at least from the outside looking in, it appeared to be a halfway decent job I had at a certain point, on salary with my own office, going to work in business casual, and all this, married, had a mortgage, whatever, some version of a white picket fence, American dream, which is not even that. The American dream is, hey, y'all got nothing, come here or get born here. And if you want to serve Moloch's machine, then, you can scratch and claw your way into, some version of a life for you and your children. That's what the American dream is. And it still exists. It just doesn't exist for the people who are born here, generally speaking, right? It exists because there's people, just like when I lived in the streets with nothing for 6 years, it was a piece of cake to then go from that to living in a big rig or even living in the Salvation Army while I went to truck driving school and took a bus 45 minutes each way, best case scenario, to work at the airport. Like, that was all fucking easy because of what I was coming out of. Same thing with a lot of these people coming to the country. It's fucking easy for them to come here and work 2 corporate jobs, and I don't mean like white collar. I mean like work at McDonald's and, work wherever else, and then also do the gig economy and also raise their kids, right? It's easy for them based on where they're coming from. And it's not even easy. It's just, it's appealing and it's doable, right? That's the American dream. That's what Moloch's machine wants. It doesn't want people who are born here, white and black people from the country, who actually want to be treated with respect and dignity. It ain't got time for that. It has no time for that. None whatsoever. It's not interesting. That doesn't serve Moloch's machine, therefore it's not interesting. Therefore, go fuck yourselves. Like, for real, go fuck yourselves. That's what Moloch's machine is telling most of us right now. Yeah, my mom is free to go at age almost 7. I guess she's 70. She's free to go work for some, retail store in her town, because there's enough old folks there that still patronize that kind of business, right? So presumably the corporation, that is involved in operating that retail outlet in a strip mall in Baxter County, Arkansas, it's still profitable, I guess. And, my mother does have certain, traits that where, a lot of people probably wanted that job, and then she's the one that ends up getting it. Yeah, so it's the whole thing, right? But, why is she doing it? A lot of it is because for some insane, and this is what it is to be an American. It's again the common sensing and the word of mouthing of everything. Is that she knew before the pandemic that she was only going to have a certain level of Medicaid and health insurance, and then during the pandemic, she got more, of a benefit or whatever at the level of her health insurance through Medicaid. And then now the pandemic officially ends or whatever. And now she's telling me on the phone, oh, well, and my Medicaid's ending or whatever. And, now I got to pay out of pocket. And which is fine, except, and I don't want to criticize my own mother, but I will, but I mean to her face, but it's like, hey, this is a system, lady. And you were able to foresee, okay, for a period of time, I'm going to have Medicaid. Why did she ever identify with, okay, now I'm going to have this forever, indefinitely? It's like, why would, so actually nothing changed to cause her to go back into the workforce. And what level of delusion and fantasy is it where the individual's just like, oh, well, now I don't need to worry because I have this Medicaid. It's like, yeah, but you didn't have it before and now it's gone again. So like, what are we even talking about? Like, I'll never be able to understand that. And, probably part of that is her being brainwashed, consenting to a cult brainwashing her. She's probably not able to fully think her way through that, which does remind me one time that my parents had this 87 Suburban, light tan and darker tan, I guess, or maybe tan and blue. I don't exactly remember the color scheme, but they had defective paint for whatever reason. The Chevy and GM paint was real bad back then. So at a certain point, my dad is like, and I was driving it like at college or whatever, and maybe I was back in town for this part of the summer or whatever. And they were like, yeah, we're taking it. They've got to take your Suburban in. And it wasn't mine, but I was driving it. You've got to take your Suburban in they're going to repaint it on Monday. So over the weekend, there was, I took my girlfriend, my high school girlfriend, there was like a trail. There was like a sort of an off-road thing, but you couldn't, you didn't need a four-wheel drive to get there. And it was like you could drive to this bluff or whatever, kind of a lover's lane type of deal. Except, you couldn't take a decent vehicle back there because it would scratch your paint all up because of all the limbs, the tree limbs. Well, so the way my brain works is like, oh, we can actually go there over the weekend because they're going to paint the fucking car Monday. I just have to make sure I don't go so fast that we put dents in the paint, right? And I think the thing had already been through a hailstorm, but whatever. So, and maybe it was a Tuesday or whatever. So I have a vivid memory of my mom like admonishing me, like as if I had done something wrong. And, I think maybe standing in the driveway of their home or whatever. And, I'm in my late teens, early 20s or whatever, I guess late teens. And she's like, and you ruined the paint on that Suburban. And I just looked at her because all my brain says was, yeah, it's getting a new paint job tomorrow. But I was so just stupefied that she just said that to me as if I've just permanently ruined the paint job of a car or a Suburban. So I didn't even say anything. I just looked at her like, and I think in my head I was just like, are you fucking stupid? But what is that about her brain? And it's got to be something about the critical thinking being hobbled by, this cult or whatever. Because it's like, I'm just looking at her like, yeah, and it's going to the dealership for a brand new paint job tomorrow. Like, what are you talking? But I think I just didn't even say anything. Just like, because then it's fast forward to the next day or the day after, and there's a Suburban that did have a scratched up paint job, and now it has a brand new paint job. So I knew at some point probably she was going to realize, oh, that's right, And I didn't even say. There's no point in me even rubbing her nose in it, It's like, oh, that's right. They painted the fucking thing. It's like, what even is this? And I've known for a long time. And even back then, I had not even developed my own ability to use logic and reason. I talk about teaching myself logic and reason in my 30s. I had my own lack of ability, but I was quite astute, probably because of the undiagnosed fake autism. I've been really good with the pattern recognition and, finding the weak points in a system. Like, that's a system. If you tell me, hey, that truck's going to get painted on Monday, that's a system in a way. Now I know, okay, well, if I want to go do a thing that I haven't been able to do because it will damage the paint, and I know I'm not going to damage the metal, now I'm free to go do that thing over the weekend. and we've never been able to do as a couple because we don't have an old beat up 4-wheel drive or whatever to go mudding in. It's like, okay, now since they're going to paint the fucking thing, I know I can drive it there. Yeah, there's going to be scratches on the paint and it's going to sit in the driveway for a day and a half at my parents' house, but who cares? Because they're the ones who told me, hey, make sure you don't forget you got to be around on Monday or Tuesday or whatever it was to take the Suburban in to get it painted. We're having a slow driving contest again. Maybe we're going uphill again. Visually, it's hard to tell sometimes if we're actually going uphill or not. You know, these trucks can't get up these hills necessarily. I'm just confused. Am I supposed to pass this truck? I can't really tell. Is he actually just going to go 55? I'm sure I believe it. Let's go 60 and see if I catch it. This is bizarre. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. What up, Joe Moore? I don't know what that. You typoing down there? I don't know what that chat means, but I'm sure it's fine. Good to see you, sir, as always. All right, one moment while I break into the chocolate bar here. It's almost bathroom break time, too. Almost. Probably this bar's broken into pieces, so I'm getting out my flashlight. Give me just a moment. I have to hold it in my mouth. Oh, it's actually intact. Amazing. Amazing. Usually they are, but they've been moving around so much in the car, and I'll take them in when I do get a motel room. I'll take them inside so they don't melt or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I see a little crack. A piece broke off. Not in the right place. Bear with me while we eat the chocolate. Your royal wheat, health food, no sugar. It's not sugar free, not sweet, unsweetened chocolate. Delicious. Oh, what's good? Okay, yeah, I don't know some of these acronyms and abbreviations. Yeah, what's happening? What's happening? Well, what's good is what's inside of me. What's not good is everything, almost everything that's not inside of me in a delusion. That's where that Saul of Tarsus from the Bible, that's where his gospel falls short, talking about that no matter what his intention is, in spite of his best efforts, he always ends up serving evil. Well, either he never was what I know myself to be, or he never figured out how to properly identify, one of the two. Because when I'm properly identified with what I know myself to be, I'm not capable of doing evil. How about that, Saul of Tarsus? How about that, Bubba? I can't wait to preach that one in public. That's going to turn some heads. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. In the world, not of the world. So, what does that mean? And I was thinking about that last night, Joe Moore. And a lot of this stuff, I'm realizing that religion, and religion, of course, being a product of Moloch's machine itself, everything in America is a business style, is a lot of this stuff is backwards, right? So what I am is not of this world. And when properly identified, I can't be a part of this delusion. right? Meaning, yeah, I'm in this delusion, you know. However, what I am is not, it's not a product of this realm. It can't ever be a product of this realm. This realm can't touch what I am and what I know myself to be. I love it. It can't do anything to me. And before I figured out this, before I had this experience of true knowledge of self about 5 weeks ago now, maybe six, I don't know. I've been saying for a long time that if this world could destroy me, it would have done so by now, right? And then, and when I was still in LA, I started. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this semi. I started just directly talking to the demonic forces and the spiritual attackers and all this. I said, "Do your worst, man. Do your fucking worst." Threw down the gauntlet, committed myself fully to you know spiritual warfare, and then it wasn't that much longer. Uh, and the spiritual attacks definitely intensified in certain ways, but it wasn't that much longer till uh, that experience happened. Only after I went back to truck driving, though. I'm still kind of mulling that one over. There's got to be some kind of connection there, but could just be timing, right? Hard to say. And something else I was thinking about last night, and then when I woke up this morning, of course, I woke up and it was still last night. I got good quality sleep, though. I can tell you that. Woo! That was some good quality sleep. I needed that too, big time. And yes, sir. Um, was the there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of stuff going on in that movie Fight Club, but I'm starting to see that, at least for me, for now, that one of the key concepts, the biggest key concepts from Fight Club is to let that which does not matter truly slide, and that's something I'm practicing more and more, and especially because again, within a delusion, I can talk about being properly identified all I want, but there's still a version of I know I'm going to have to go somewhere. I'm going to have be able to have proper rest, whether that's outdoors or not, either way. Like there are things that must be dealt with within delusion, but, you know, ultimately it doesn't matter. Like now we're back to the Zen Buddhist idea of, when you're tired, go to sleep, right? Like it really is that, because all of the parts where I try to strategize, and I am effective at this, and I have some skills in this area, but there's really no point in me, improperly identifying long enough to even concern myself with, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to sleep? And a lot of it, it's, and I'll admit this, a lot of it is I don't want to give up the egg dreams. I know it is quite appealing to walk around with a minimum of possessions, but it's like, yeah, but I kind of need the car I got a full size tote of, not even supplements, but just all the things that end up in the egg concoctions. And, the stove and the fuel and the fancy boy teapot, right, for the pour over. The whole fucking thing, right? It's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to carry all that around, nor would I want to. I guess hypothetically, I could go to Harbor Freight and get one of those, some version of a cart with wheels on it. But I'm not trying to do all that. If you're not into it. Mm. Yeah, sold, not for sale. Well, and I'm starting to wonder, Joe Moore, like, does every individual, and again, you know, if forced to choose, I'm going with solipsism, right? Me personally, but is every being when they come out of their mama's womb and pass into this delusion, are they all, those delusory, individuated, the idea that it's possible to break off a chunk of the most, of an indivisible force, the most super intelligent force of love and creation possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, a quickening spirit, right? Or is some of these folks in meat suits actually not, they never were that? See, I don't know. I'll never know. Or at least while I'm here, I won't know. So then, because now that I have that true knowledge of self, so I guess before I had this true knowledge of self, I guess it would have been possible that I could have chosen to serve the Moloch's machine of death and destruction and depravity and decadence and delusion thoroughly enough that, via my own creative force that I wouldn't have been aware of, that I would have allowed the antithesis. I never would have known that I am the proposition and that there's this antithesis of that proposition seeking to usurp and actually disprove the validity of that proposition or thesis. So is that what we mean by selling of one's soul, right? To just say, okay, antithesis, that being will ensure, that the usurper is always in control, right? Via the creative force. Maybe that's what that is. You look at Bob Dylan and all of these, the Rolling Stones, and just all the famous people, all the very famous people. And then you talk about, and again, I'm not criticizing Joe Moore, but while I will work within the confines of a idea of in the world, not of the world, and I will also work within that context when I choose to. That's not enough. I'll also transcend the concept because that would represent limitation in a way, or it could. The limitation would be the in the world, in this world part, which the reality is what I know myself to be is never here because this is not even a here because it's a delusion by definition. So strictly speaking, what I am can't be here. If that makes sense. Because this is a delusion and my experience within the larger delusion is only via my own moment to moment creative force, right? Which is involved in some version of delusion to some extent, or at least in the past, more and more, if I'm not making the delusion, the individuated delusion, what, I don't know what happens then, you know, am I not even bitten anymore? Right. And this is where the foundation, I can see a lot of people just going insane, right? Like I must, looking back, I can see just how important it was that I did so firmly root myself in a foundation of, being able to think my way through and take charge of my own mental health. But again, what is meant by mental health? That's in relation to Moloch's machine. That's what goes on in my thought process inside of me, but only in relation to the realm itself. See, that's where you get the idea of mental illness, you know. In a vacuum, Jesus going off to meditate and fast in the desert for 40 days, you know, that would probably be viewed as mentally ill, right? Like it's in relation to the realm itself, which is again delusion. Like I'm not what I am is not capable of mental illness. So why would I fear that? Right. And again, I'm not even what I am can't fear in the first place. But even logically speaking, it's always in relation to a delusion, a thing that can never fully be real. Yeah, it can seem very real. That doesn't make it real. You know what else seems very real to people? Whatever video games they play at their house. Yeah, it seems very real, whatever augmented or virtual reality. Same thing with my experience within a delusion. It's not even my experience. The idea of me having an individuated experience within this realm or a larger delusion, that's a delusion. And I can very quickly see how this would, some people would go fucking crazy even thinking that way. So yeah, I get it. Shout out to Theo Bromine. Wonderful. And again, in a so-called truth community, and I, had the weaponized truth of the growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't have truth because it's not truth is manifest. It can't be possessed, right? Or wielded. Truth is living. Truth is manifest. If not, can't be truth. It's dead. Truth can never be a dead thing. So, I was weaponized in a way to just, if I know something to be true, that's good enough for me. I'm not concerned beyond that. Okay. I'm like, yeah, it's good enough for me. I don't need to worry about, well, how will this affect how my peer group views me? How will this affect my own image of myself? How will this, accepting this truth that's manifesting? Right? Mm. And sorry for eating, only by being improperly identified with the realm itself is one even able to have those thoughts, right? That's based on an error in the first place, improperly identified with anything other than, again, if they are what I am. Solipsistically, I have no way of knowing that. No, probably not, but perhaps, which does make me one of the baddest motherfuckers of all time. I mean, if every single person that was born into similar circumstances as me is what I am, and I'm, until proven otherwise, I'm the one motherfucker who figured it the fuck out, then I'm one of the baddest motherfuckers of all time. Again, what I am can only ever be one of the baddest motherfuckers of all time. But again, in relation to a realm, a delusory realm. So who cares? It's really not an accomplishment. And that's where all this glory to God stuff comes in. It's not, oh, God's on the throne outside of me and it's wonderful. Although I guess that is outside of me in a way, but I'm inside of that. So, what are we even talking about? But it's not this idea of, oh, there's an external God on a throne somewhere, a man with a crown on a throne. It's not that. Kind of forgot what I was going to say, but I'll get to it momentarily. So that's the, one of the big errors is Moloch's machine is set up to always have the being identifying, again, outside of themselves with anything other than what they may very well be within themselves, which is, again, that's their power. What I am is more powerful than anything any of us could possibly ever imagine. All right. Where? Inside of me. Within what? A delusion. Right. So again, that's the delusion, is this idea that a big part of the delusion is this idea that there's this force and it has characteristics, right? And because of those characteristics, it created you and me and put us in this wonderful, glorious place, right? I mean, this is the conventional wisdom and the common sense and the word of mouthing, right? But while simultaneously people will talk about how horrible the world is and be in the world, not of the world, and all this. But I'm supposedly here because something outside of me loves me so much. Like it just logically doesn't make any sense. So what I've been doing lately is my reframing of all of this based on my true knowledge of self is actually reconciling these ideas and showing them to be, well, a lot of it's just backwards. It's backwards ass ideas. The shit is exactly backwards. Just reverse it or invert it to where it's supposed to be. And then look, it all makes sense. But how dare you, little bit, and claim all of these things? It's like, well, it either is or it ain't. I don't know what to tell you. And, how or why would I give a flying fuck what a delusion thinks of me? Right? Or how a delusion treats me, So at this point, and I do believe that's what I meant when I said, do your worst. I repeatedly said to the realm itself. I don't know that I understood I was speaking to a delusion, but I'm what I am, it's so able to effortlessly overpower or move beyond the limitations of a delusion. It's laughable, right? It's like, yeah, do your worst, delusion. I'll just stand here and more or less be like, is that all you got? Right? And to me, that's my victory, as knowing that I am what Benton is the delusory aspects within the delusion, I am carrying that around with me within this delusion. And it's the way I speak, right? It's my accent, it's the way I talk, it's the way I carry myself, my body language, it's my physical appearance. That's all dead, by the way. Now, maybe not the sound vibration, but that everything, it's all dead. It belongs to this place, right? My psychology belongs to this place. It's dead. The way I physically look belongs to this place. It's dead, right? I can never be those things. Those things can never be what I am. Those are characteristics of the delusory, that's all belongs to the delusory aspects of me seemingly operating within this realm of delusion, right? It's by definition, all of that is delusory or illusory, right? And it's sort of combinations of both, but delusory, I think, is more important because our psychologies have done such a number on us. It's, I'm even finding it necessary to constantly remind myself of the delusory aspects, right? Well, Joe Moore, if you're still here, I actually have explained the simulation on here. If you let me know that you're here, I'll go back through it. If you're not here, I've covered it a couple of times, and I really don't. I'm happy to go through it if you're listening, but if not, I probably will skip it. But if somebody says, yeah, we'd like to know. But yeah, I've actually answered that question recently about, are we in a simulation? All right, cool. So sidestep. So I'll go ahead and say you're talking about the royal we. So, if you are what I am, Joe Moore, right? Again, I solipsistically, I can never be sure. So, and you see how it's very important that I properly frame all of this. Otherwise, very quickly, the discussion is just lost. It's often left field. Very quickly, it unravels itself, right? So bear with me because I must speak quite specifically to get through all of this. And it's not even that much material, but. So when I see people talking about simulation theory, and since I enjoy conspiracy theories at the level of entertainment, right? I heard about simulation theory. Now the normie knows about it, right? Now the normie on TikTok's talking about, well, it's a simulation anyway, or whatever. Give me a second. I get to rinse the chocolate off my teeth. Chocolate's actually good for the teeth. I don't know if y'all know that. Since there's no sugar, I probably could have just left it there. However, so, and bear with me, Joe Moore, because some of this is going to sound pretty pedantic, but it's going to. So what I would say is, at a certain point, it was like, okay, but what I recognize is what exactly is being simulated? Question mark. So until that can be answered, what I would say is it's not possible to know if this is a simulation, meaning And again, I'm only speaking in the context of delusion, right? So I need to know exactly what's being simulated. And so furthermore, I can do nobody's really even attempted to answer that, and I haven't had an answer. So the way I figured this out logically is I thought, okay, well, what is a simulation? Within this realm, there people do like businesses or at various times, and then there are computer simulations like Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's say I'm a business, I have $100,000, and for whatever reason I want to simulate what's it like for Benton when he walks in the front door of a Walmart Supercenter and immediately begins to be spiritually attacked. I want a Benton's Walmart Supercenter spiritual attack simulator. I have $100,000. That's my budget, and I'm some kind of business, and I shop around, and a salesman, sells me on the idea of, okay, our company, whatever this, we have a team of programmers and software engineers, and so the salesman sells me and oversells me and says, okay, we can do everything you're asking because he wants his commission, right? So I'm saying, here's what I want simulated. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And so now at a certain point, there has to be a meeting of the minds around, there's going to be a contract. It's going to be a business agreement. The salesman wants his cut. He wants his commission. Then there's a team of software engineers somewhere that the salesman has nothing to do with, other than he might have to go ask some questions at times, right? And then eventually there's some kind of project manager, and that's going to be maybe the liaison between the sales staff and the engineers. And then, but they also have to get me to agree to sign the contract. So they're probably pretty quickly going to want to know, okay, what's the meaning of, what do you mean by spiritual attack? What is that? Like, what does that look like? So we can't just assume based on a business contract. That's all going to have to be defined and hammered out. There's going to be some version of a negotiations, and I'm going to be like, well, yeah, the sales guy, he said this was no fucking problem. And he's like, yeah, but he doesn't. The sales guy's not an engineer. So, and I know I'm over explaining, and I know Joe Moore is certainly intelligent enough to understand what I'm saying and to follow along. And I'll back up a little bit and say, a lot of people, when asked, is this realm of simulation? And I'm like, okay, what exactly is being simulated? A lot of people would want to just say, point to the realm itself and say, well, this is being simulated. So the reason I'm going through all of this is I can't just have the sales guy come with me to Walmart and just be like, hey man, watch what the fuck's is gonna happen here, And that's not even what I mean. Actually, I'm already on the wrong. Forget about that. So let's imagine that the process is already, let's imagine that I paid them the money, we've signed the contract, they've delivered the final product, and then time has passed, and somebody who's never gone into a super center has no real concept of a super center, right? But they've grown up as a human being in a realm. They can at least relate to a human experience. They can at least relate to a spiritual experience. Can I ever boot up the fucking Jason Benton, spiritual attack Walmart Supercenter simulator, let's say they have no frame of reference for what's a spiritual attack. Let's say they have no frame of reference for why does a person need a Walmart Supercenter? Let's say if so much time has passed, they have no frame of reference. They don't really know what any of that means. Can I ever just point to the thing itself and say, well, that's what's being simulated? Well, of course not. Because I can't point to the realm and say the realm itself is being simulated, because that would mean now you're telling me that the realm is in fact the genuine article. Then it's not a simulation. Like, what are we talking about? Right? How can it be both things? Unless somebody can answer for me exactly what the fuck is the simulator doing, right? What's the purpose? Why was the simulator created? Who or what created the simulation and why? Until then, I would say it doesn't even fucking matter, right? But what's the difference? And I don't mean we, I mean the royal we, I'm so lost. If I get to the point of, hey, it's a simulation, and I just stop thinking, I'm proving I'm so fucking lost, because how the fuck can I declare it a simulation, but I can't tell you exactly what's being simulated? I'm here to tell you, I can tell you exactly what's being simulated and why. And I'm about to do that. hold my not hold my beer, but and it's probably not quite as earth shattering as you might think, as you might otherwise think. So here's what the simulation is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and define the simulation. Now remember, this is all within the overall delusory realm. So I'm actually speaking within delusion itself. The idea of and what is a simulation? Well, in some way, it's it's a series of experiments. So if you're talking about a computer, like your whatever video game, if you're a gamer, whatever game you might like to play, what Microsoft Flight Simulator, there's always a now. In playing the game, now it's here, now it's gone. Now it's here, now it's gone. There's always that. There's always the now. Well, and then the person says, well, of course, because I'm a human being and I'm experiencing the present moment at the level of a now. And I'm like, yes, you are. And that's a delusion. That's the delusion that time and space exists in the first place. I'm talking about within that delusion. The computer code, right, is running based on a notion of there's a now, okay, within a delusion. And the being is experiencing that simulation in a individuated delusory experience, right? And maybe if I'm able to move beyond solipsism, maybe other beings are simultaneously running what? Their own simulations, right? Maybe it's possible that in fact every being, if that's even a thing that's here, is running their own individuated versions. So what is being simulated? Well, what is a simulation? In some way, it's a series of experiments. And what do video games show us? Well, there's an alpha, and then there's a beta, and we debug, and we look for the errors in the system. How do we do that? By playing the game experimentally, right? Not knowing, maybe it's about to crash. If I go over here and, I'm identified with the character in a first person game and I'm rubbing my booty on this wall, then, I actually, the game glitches and I can actually like move on to a different, I can like teleport into a different part of the map or whatever, right? All of these things, man. The nature of the playing of the game, that is an experiment. Now, again, this is my opinion. I'm asserting this, right? It's debatable, and I'm doing a thought experiment to make a point, which is if that's all the case, if we're willing to accept that when we mean simulation, it's some version of a real, something that seems real, right? I would say, well, it is a series of experiments being conducted in the now, which is a delusion, right? So, okay, what's the purpose and what's being simulated and what's the experiment? It's all based on the notion that the literal book of Job from the Bible, the idea of, the sons of God came to present within a delusion, these delusory aspects of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, traveling back to source, presumably, to present themselves before the Lord. And also Satan came also in their midst, meaning antithesis, meaning the Lord would be proposition, right? Creation, love would be proposition. Antithesis, that's the usurper. That's the thing that would say, well, actually, what about this? What about that? Meaning, and now we get into the, in the story of Job, thesis detects antithesis within its own nature, in its own midst, right? As its own nature is returning to source, there's antithesis, which I take to mean everywhere thesis can go, antithesis is also able to go. And then so in the story of the book of Job, thesis notices antithesis and says, hey, antithesis, what are you doing? And antithesis says, oh, you know me, Roman, now the spirit or nature in this context of a delusion. What would be the nature of that? Of thesis would be something like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, unable to conceptualize or concern itself with potential calamities, negative states of being, depression, woe is me, the gnashing of teeth, all of these things. It can't even conceptualize any of that, right? So what that leads to is that force wants to help antithesis, because thesis can't conceptualize that, even if it intuitively understands that, well, maybe I suspect antithesis is up to something here. All it can ever do is what? Have an ardent desire to be helpful. That's its nature. So it says, hey, let me help you. Have you considered my servant Job? Meaning, I know that Job has the same nature I have, right? You're looking for something within this delusory realm to act upon. How about Job? Because remember, the sons of God that you've traveled with, well, they're returning to me anyway. Meaning, I don't know, maybe we're all existing. We all know, again, it's not even possible to break off these little chunks, right? That's already within the delusion. Anything involving the idea that there can be these little discrete chunks of the larger indivisible force, that's how we know, that's how the person observing this can be absolutely sure it's within the delusion, right? 100% of the time. Because that cannot exist outside of the delusion itself. The delusion only ever comes into being through what? The subversion of the creative force, the overall creative force that created this realm. That creative force made this realm, not because a man on a throne in the sky somewhere said, I'm going to make a realm because for whatever my purpose. It wasn't that. See, that's backwards. That's inverted. It's because that force of creation can't really do anything other than create. And there has to be something. Unless it's possible for there to be nothing, there has to be something. What is that something? That something is the most super intelligent force of love and creation possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, a quickening spirit. So if that exists, there has to be the antithesis, right? And now that's the usurper, that's Satan, that wants to prove that, in fact, well, I'm the thesis, right? And I know this is sort of a long way around, but we're going to get back to the simulation. So this realm, the delusion is more or less the meeting of the minds between thesis and antithesis. Okay, now we have these individuated delusory aspects. Each now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone. Each one of those discrete moments, that's the simulation. That's what's being simulated. What's being recorded for posterity within the simulation is, in each new moment, within a delusion, my individuated little chunk of creative force, every single moment, my creative force never lies dormant. It always brings something new into existence. And whatever is brought into existence can always be judged at the level of it serves oneness or creation itself, or it serves zero or nothingness or destruction or antithesis. There is no middle ground. So the simulation is whatever's running in the background, seemingly, that's actually assessing. And if there are, in fact, billions of beings that all have that same nature, or at least came into the realm with that nature, again, delusory, individuated aspects within a delusion, right? Based on the idea that it's even possible to do a thing that's impossible. Impossible is nothing, right? That was a slogan of advertising within Moloch's machine. So that's the simulation. It's actually the spiritual war itself. So it's the moment where antithesis gets to appeal via legalese and say, aha, some version of Al Pacino from Devil's Advocate, which I never saw, where antithesis wants to be able to pause the simulation, or at least point to the simulation in a time and space beyond this place that doesn't even strictly speaking exist, to be able to say, well, look, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Well, how do we have 7 billion, delusory individuated aspects, and it's been, a month now, and not one of those lights is shown, right? Seems to me like I'm not antithesis, but it seems to me like antithesis or Satan would then say, well, actually, all of history, all of creation, all of everything that exists has been based on this notion that creation and love at the highest levels of a quickening spirit that the idea has been that that's thesis, that's proposition, that's the highest order. Well, in fact, I seem to have proven through usurping that within this simulation, I seem to have, it's actually the exact opposite, right? That's the simulation. It's the spiritual war. Each new moment, that's what's being assessed moment to moment. So, yes, it is a simulation, but that's not the entirety of what's happening. And the human mind, and I'll end on this, not in the stream, but I'll end this discourse, and then I'll pull over and take a leak. I'll end the discourse on this. Good to see you, Denise. I'll end on this point, and I might have already forgotten it, but it doesn't matter because it'll either come back or it won't, which is to say, what was I going to say? Um, I forgot, but it doesn't even matter. Like that's, you know, that's the thing itself. But that's what's happening here within, again, within delusion. And what I am can never ever even be here, right? And what I am, and so the reason why this all ever happened in the first place, in my opinion, is because like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, what I am can't even conceptualize, and also does have kind of the spirit of, well, if Job's over there and he is what I know myself to be, I know, and because the spiritual war is based on, well, he has the highest value ever because he's identified with, you know, this highest order of creation and love. And so what thesis will say is, well, yeah, you can take all of those blessings away from him externally within the realm, and it's based on the notion of what, that the most super intelligent force of love and creation possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency within a delusion will actually curse its own blessed nature to its face. That's what the book of Job is about. And what I know myself to be would say, well, is if Job's capable of that, fuck him. We don't need him anyway. If that's what he is, I never knew him. So fuck him. Right? And that is a big part of what the Bible's about. Hey, it's like, yeah, I never knew you, partner. Meaning that is the judgment. The judgment is actually each new moment in the simulation, right? Meaning, I guess if all of humanity in a delusion turns their back on their own nature, again, if solipsism isn't even a thing, right? It could just be me, right? Meaning, as long as I'm going to let my little light shine, at some point, and I'm saying that sort of tongue in cheek, you know, then antithesis can never truly win or carry the day, right? So what are we even talking about? Not much, seems to me. And is this the fellow that works here? What he's doing, wandering around the parking lot just now. But looks like he's going to his trunk. But that is that's what's happening. I'm almost certain of it. Now I'm convinced. Again, but that's only evidence to me. I'm not then able to take that and present it to you as evidence. However, as noted, if it's going to be an actual devil's advocate, courtroom scene from the movie, then my testimony is evidence. Okay, and the Bible certainly calls on individuals to testify, right? But I'll be back. Thanks for listening. I shall return. Mic check. All right, I think we're about done. I've been running my yap long enough, so appreciate everybody being here, and maybe be back later today. Who knows? But thanks for watching. Bye.